Hannah LaBolle, my friend, my
Hello.
confidant, my neighbor. How are you?
Hello. Good. Happy to be here.
Good. Yay. I'm so excited that we finally got this scheduled.
Yes.
Yay. So
Yes.
fun. So we have some big things to talk about today,
Yes.
but before we do that, can you introduce yourself?
I'm Hannah and I am married to my husband, Andy. We've been married for 10 years and he's the best. He's the best partner ever. And we have two kids. Finn is 15 months and Eli is 5. And we own two businesses. So I've been a photographer for like 15 years.
Mhm.
Um,
And one of the best.
oh, thank you.
You have done many a photo shoot for me and my family, and you're amazing.
Oh, thank you.
That was just, a little side note.
And then we also own a coffee shop that is like a shop. We roast our own coffee, we bake delicious things. So that's
So
us.
if people are familiar with the Spokane / West Plains area,
Yes.
where can they find this said coffee shop?
Yes, our coffee shop is in Cheney, Washington, and it's called West Plains Roasters. And
Yay.
I just have to say, Fridays are the best day to go to the shop because we have cake by the slice on Fridays, and
Yes.
cake is always a good decision.
I mean, who does? It's like fry yay because there's cake, right?
So true. It's so true.
It's so exciting. Okay,
Yes.
awesome. So Hannah, I also know about you that you're a 9 on the enneagram.
I am a 9 wing one,
So tell
very
me about,
nine.
like, how did you figure that out about yourself?
Yes. Okay. When we first learned about the Enneagram, people were like, go take this test or that test. And I
Mhm.
tested, I'd be like 9, 6, 4. And I was like, this feels confusing. But
Mhm.
as soon as I read the book, The Road Back to You, as soon
Yes.
as I read about nines, I was like, this is me. And I cried.
Oh,
Because it's just totally me and it made so
yeah.
much sense. And I definitely have a one wing. I can like put my one pants on and get things
Mhm.
done and make lists. But who I am is a 9.
Yeah. Those pants are a little tight, so you have to like take them off when
Like they're
they
not
start
my
to,
preference.
right. Not your favorite pair of pants.
Not my favorite pair of pants. And sometimes they get stuck on and my
Yeah.
Andy has to be like, hey, yeah.
Take those pants off. Oh,
Oh,
awkward.
whoops.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so why is it helpful for you to know about your Enneagram? Like, how do you use that
Yes.
in your day to day?
Yes. I think I heard this from that book, The Road Back to You.
Mhm.
They said essentially, if you know more about yourself and more about those you love based on their Enneagram number, it's just a tool to help you know yourself and
Mhm.
therefore help you know God better because God
Mhm.
is our creator and He created us all, and how beautiful we are that we have these different numbers that are so different,
Mhm.
that are really necessary for the different things that happen in our life. And it's just a really beautiful picture of our creator, I think, and the
Yeah.
way he made us. So it has helped me understand myself so much.
Mhm.
Nines have the second lowest capacity of all the Enneagram
Mhm.
numbers. That feels very true. Um,
Mhm.
and then Andy's a 6. He's a
Yes. Six
loyalist.
club.
Yes. So he's a loyalist and battles with fear and anxiety. And I was like, I don't even know what that feels like.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that was like so helpful for me to understand
Right.
that he's actually like the most courageous person I know because he's overcoming fears all
All the
day,
time. Yeah.
every day. And I need to have all the compassion and give him the space to have his fear. And then
Yeah.
we move forward. So,
Yeah. It's funny. So John is a one wing 9. So you guys
yes,
are in the same boat-ish.
yes.
Um, And I'm also a 6. And so it's
Yes.
funny because when you say that, it literally, there'll be times where I'm like,
Oh,
John, so when we were driving on that windy road, were you thinking about like what we would do if we drove off the road? And he's like,
yeah.
no, why would I be thinking? I'm
Never.
like, okay,
Never.
yeah. Well, I did. And I have 6 solutions to what we would do if we drove off the road.
Yes, yes. Sometimes Andy will take me down those paths, and
Yeah,
sometimes I just say, I love
I'm
you. I'm
good.
actually not going to go there with you. Hey, hey.
That is so funny. That's just, how us 6s are, and
Yeah,
it's just who we
yeah.
are. But
And
listen, you
special.
would want to be with us if your car drives off the road because we will know exactly
Yes,
what to do.
it's very true. Very true. I
Yes.
have you on speed dial.
Perfect. Oh my gosh, so much fun. Okay, so let's now talk about your adoption journey. So
Yeah.
tell me about that. Like, how did you get
Yes.
into, I know you started as foster parents.
Yes.
So how
So
did you get into that?
yeah, so we knew a lot of other foster families at the time, one of which was my sister Meg,
Mhm.
and she and I are really close. And I lived with her before Andy and I were married, so got to really encounter foster care
Mm-hmm.
up close. And we really take our auntie and uncle duties very seriously, but pre-children. I mean, still now, but
Yeah.
especially pre-children.
Yeah.
And so we just felt very invested in their cases and their lives.
Mm-hmm.
And Andy and I were on a 5 to 8 year plan for after we got married for starting a family.
Okay.
And so around year 5, we were like, man, I'm not sure we're ready for forever.
Mm-hmm.
Like, not really interested in adoption, not really interested in having a biological child. But we felt like, man, once your eyes are opened to a
Mm-hmm.
need, it's hard not to feel like, oh, I could be part of helping a child in their story.
Mm-hmm.
And so I decided, for me, one of my non-negotiables was I wasn't ready for a kid to look at me and say, you can't tell me what to do because you're not my mom.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, so no talking children yet. So
Perfect.
somehow, I'm honestly not sure how, I convinced Andy that babies were for us.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we discharged our first placement from the NICU, and that's how we started our parenting journey. And so
Mm-hmm.
we had one placement, our first, who we still are in contact with today. She was adopted by her biological aunt and uncle, and we feel so lucky that we've gotten to follow her story.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so then Eli was our third newborn placement. And we also discharged him from the hospital.
Mm,
Kind of a crazy story, but he was in the NICU for 5 weeks, and we got
mm,
to do his cares during that
mm-hmm.
time because they just didn't expect him to stay in the NICU for very long.
Mm-hmm.
And we brought him home, and they said, he's not going to stay. This was like October. They're like, he's probably not even going to stay till Christmas. There's
Mm-hmm.
so much family in the area and involved who are interested in being his forever family.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so kind of
Yeah.
don't, don't consider this a long-term
Yep.
option. So Christmas passes, he's still with us. And he was in had a lot of appointments and therapies. And so we got to meet a lot of his bio family.
Mm-hmm.
And through that, they realized that his care was just too much for them and it wasn't going to work. And so we got the honor of his grandparents who have placement of his older brother
Mm-hmm.
and have since adopted him. They came to us and said, we want you to adopt
Mm-hmm.
Eli. And that was like just amazing. They were like,
Yeah.
his biological family, both mom and dad, are Russian, and so there's a really big cultural element
Yeah.
for us. And so his babushka came to me and she said, I feel old. I feel like I just want
Oh,
to be a babushka.
babushka. Yeah.
She's like, I don't think I can do this. And I was like, that's okay. That's
Mm-hmm.
okay. You can be his babushka.
Mm-hmm.
So we have a really, really special relationship with them. So Eli's case started in 2017. We were right at the end, about to have a term trial when COVID shut down the court systems.
Yeah.
So I don't know if a lot of people know this, but COVID shutting down the courts basically, in so many ways, like paused cases for kids
Oh,
in.
for long periods of time.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
the court for Eli, it was closed for 11 months.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we went from he's almost legally free, parental rights have either signed an OAA or have been terminated, to nothing
Yeah.
for 11 months. And then during that time, jails were letting out a lot of people in
Yeah.
an attempt to not continue to spread COVID. And so for us, that meant that one of Eli's parents was released early from
Mm-hmm.
jail by like 14 months, like a
Mm.
long time, which then really changed his case again.
Yeah. The case
So
then.
after it's going one way, then the courts are closed and the courts are reopened. Then we have to reestablish this parent being unable to care for this child, which then meant visitations started after years of no visit. Like it
Yeah.
it was really hard. And we walked through like just Eli's trauma, walking through so much of our own secondary trauma.
Yeah.
At this point, we were, almost 4 years in. We were like 3 years into the case,
Yeah. Yeah.
basically we're starting over.
Over. Mm-hmm.
So it was devastating and just very hard to watch this sweet boy that we love and is part of our family doing all these hard things. But we were able to sign an OAA with one of his parents, and then we adopted him just after his 4th birthday.
Okay.
So it was a
Yay.
very long journey. We were
Mm-hmm.
licensed for 5 years. We had one placement after Eli that got to be with a long-term family who's on the road to
Mm-hmm.
adoption with him. And then we were able to have Finn.
Mm-hmm.
So a
Yeah.
long, hard road. So
Yeah. And then so then you adopted and everything was great, right?
yeah, everything was perfect.
Yeah.
All of our problems dissolved.
Just yeah, it was just like, ah, the angel singing, right?
Yes, yes.
No. So
No,
tell me
absolutely not.
after adoption, like what did that look
Yeah.
like?
Yeah. So for context, Eli was adopted um in October and I gave birth to Finn in December. So at his
Mhm.
adoption, I was very pregnant.
Mhm.
And I one thing I didn't know that I wish like more people talked about was that post adoption you can actually walk through postpartum depression as if you just
Mhm.
had a baby.
Yeah.
And I was very pregnant and having so many emotions just from my pregnancy,
Yeah.
that I look back now and realize like I was in I wasn't in a great place post
Mhm.
everything, because it's kind of felt like, these years that we've just gone through, it's like done, but it's not
Not
done.
done. Yeah.
We haven't dealt with that. Like we
Yeah.
just went through a crazy, crazy thing. And now we can breathe
Yeah.
because, it's done in a way, but really it's just the start.
Yeah.
So yeah, we went through a really, really hard, that year 4 to 5 was really difficult.
Yeah.
And I think that that's really common for any kid. Just a lot of changes are happening
Yeah.
in their body, in their life, school, things
New
like
baby.
that. New baby. Yes. And then when
Yeah.
you add like a new baby and mommy can't
Do all the things
do
that you were doing before.
everything.
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah. And so it was really a tough season. And
Mhm.
um what really helped us We did what I call a TBRI refresh.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And Andy, his stepmom, she was like, they're doing, I think it's called the Empowered to Connect conference.
Yes. Yep. I think it's
Yeah.
called something
So,
else now, but at the time it was
okay.
Empowered to Connect. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. And so they were like pre-recorded sessions that their
Mm-hmm.
church was playing over the weekend.
Yeah.
And so she's like, "Do you want to go to this with me?" And I felt like she really, really saw me during my
Mm-hmm.
like postpartum days so well and was really supportive. And so for her to even, see this, and she's like, "It's about kids who are adopted. I don't really know." And then
Oh,
to find out it's TBRI.
yeah.
And so I went down and got to have a great weekend with them. And I just refreshed
Yeah.
myself
Yeah.
because I think we started TBRI. I think I took it from you first, like when
Mhm.
around Eli's was like 18 months, maybe.
Yeah. He was
So
pretty young
this
still.
is, yeah, so this is 3 years later. Things are really different,
Mm-hmm.
his behaviors and situations are different. Um, and we had, I realized after going through that refresh, how many people in our life that we love and trust who don't follow things like TBRI and parent
Yeah.
very differently, similarly to the way that I was parented and my parents were parented and
Yeah.
on and who just kept telling us, like, you need to be harder on Eli.
Oh,
Like, you need to have better boundaries with him. Like, you need to have more discipline with him.
mm.
And once you hear that enough
On
times,
repeat. Yeah.
yeah, because I am an Enneagram 9. I'm a
Mm-hmm.
yes mom. I'm a peacemaker. If I can say yes, I'm going to say yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so to hear that just like from close friends, from relatives, from teachers, I remember telling his teacher at the time, like, every behavior has an unmet need behind it. She straight looked at me in the eyeballs and said, "I don't believe that. I don't think
Oh,
that's true." And so then I'm starting
Lord
to
have
doubt my
mercy.
own self. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it just was like so many things that made us start being more tight and more strict and more like, we need to have these firm rules and firm boundaries.
Mm.
And quite frankly, that like made
Made it
everything
worse. Yeah. Yeah.
because that doesn't work for Eli at
Yeah.
all. Like
Yeah.
some kids that might, like make a impact for the short term, but like for
Yeah.
him, it just made everything worse. So we just felt like at that time we were like, what are we doing?
Mm-hmm.
And it just was so hard. And then I did this TBRI refresh. I talked to my doctor about postpartum depression. I
Mm-hmm.
checked myself into therapy, and
Mm-hmm.
it was like, okay,
Ooh,
let's
yeah.
let's move forward. And for me, like we're Christians, and I believe in God and Him speaking to us. And
Mm-hmm.
I just felt like God kept telling me right around my birthday, as I'm kind of examining like the hardest year of our life. I birthed a baby,
Mm-hmm.
I adopted a baby, like I
Mm-hmm.
adopted like the hardest work of my life. And I felt like the Lord just kept saying to me, you can't go around.
You got to go through.
Yeah, like just peering through all of
Yeah.
these hard things in front of me, and Him saying, I know you really want to run around, but you have to go through.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, man, it was a lot.
Yeah.
But I feel like we're walking in the light now.
Yeah.
I feel
Yeah.
like we have tools and we're using them,
Mm-hmm.
and we're constantly trying new things and figuring out what works,
Mm-hmm.
um, and trying to just be what Eli needs,
Yeah.
and what Finn needs and what we need for ourselves. So,
Yeah. What can you think of specific examples of like you're so glad that you have TBRI in your back pocket?
yes. Yeah. One of the things I constantly tell myself is, I think you even posted this on a reel recently, but you said like 80% of behaviors can get resolved through playfulness.
Mm-hmm.
And I tell myself that all the time because a behavior pops up. And if I just like respond with an accent of some kind that makes Eli laugh, chances are we're moving on.
It'll keep moving
And
forward.
it's
Yeah.
literally something turns into nothing.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you just move on. And so I think that that is one, like a great TBRI place to start is just be silly and don't take things so seriously,
Yeah.
because a lot of times I think we ourselves dig in our heels and make things so much bigger than they really need to be. And it
Mm-hmm.
could just be like, oh, let's just make a funny comment, or oh, let's redo that with some respect, or
Mm-hmm.
let's try that again. And
Yeah.
just, it doesn't need to be a big deal. It can
Yeah.
just be small and we can move on.
Yeah. That's good.
Yeah.
Um, so you mentioned like the some of the people in your life and even a teacher that were just kind of like, nope, you need to be stricter and there's not always a need and all of that. How does the invisible versus visible disabilities come into play with that, in your opinion?
Yes. Yeah, that's something I think about a lot. Um, so I have a visible disability.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I have a birth anomaly on my hand. It's called macrodactyly. It affects my right hand only. It causes my fingers, four of my fingers on my right hand to be larger due to a nerve that's enlarged that then made my fingers grow faster. I had surgeries all growing up and then into adulthood. Will
Mm-hmm.
very likely continue to have surgeries in my life. But you can see
Yeah.
if, for instance, if I needed help picking something up because my fine motor skills are really limited, you can see, oh, she needs help picking something
Yeah.
up because she has a big hand.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
might not know what that is. You might not feel comfortable to ask, although I'm fine when people ask. I'd rather
Yeah.
have people ask.
Yeah.
Um, but you can see it with your eyeballs
Yeah.
versus when you have a kid with like maybe sensory processing disorder,
Mm-hmm.
ADHD, autism spectrum disorder,
Mm-hmm.
fetal alcohol spectrum disorder.
Mm-hmm.
These are things that oftentimes present themselves in behaviors
Mm-hmm.
or even in ways that culturally we would deem bad behavior,
Mm-hmm.
or we would say, oh, that kid is out of control,
Yeah. Yeah.
or whatever it may be. It's like when you're in the grocery store and you see a child melting down and your
Yeah.
instant thought is,
Oof.
yeah,
They need to do better.
yeah, that parent really
Oh,
isn't doing
yeah.
a good job, or
Get your
whatever.
kid under control.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
And either you put it on the kid, you put it on
Mm-hmm.
the
And the
parent,
parent.
whatever it
Mm-hmm.
may be. And when really it could be they have autism. They're on the
Yeah.
autism spectrum and they're experiencing something in their body that they aren't able to express in a way that
Yeah.
our culture would deem acceptable or appropriate.
Yeah.
And I know I feel the stress of this as a mom of a child who has disabilities that are
Mm-hmm.
invisible.
Yeah.
Um, I was thinking about it this weekend. We were at church and we ended up having to leave church because
Mm-hmm.
Eli was having a meltdown that was okay. It was okay. We had the day before we got to see Paw Patrol live with his grandparents,
Oh
and it
my.
was
That's
amazing.
amazing.
And he was like, "This is incredible." And
Oh
it
my
was just like
gosh.
so fun,
So
but it was
cool.
extremely
Yes.
overstimulating.
Overstimulating. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And that trickled into the next couple of days.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And, some of those things you kind of weigh as a parent with a
Mm-hmm.
child who has disabilities of, is it worth it? Is it
I
not?
know. Yeah.
And for us, we decided, yeah,
Yeah.
like this was a special thing we got to do with grandparents.
Mm-hmm.
He's obsessed with Paw Patrol.
Mm-hmm.
He's like doing plays from the show, basically putting on shows
Oh,
for us, and
love
it was
that.
worth it.
Yeah.
But then the next day, he could not go to church,
Yeah.
and church was too much. And we
Yeah.
didn't realize it till we were in it and we were
Yeah.
melting. And a lot of people in our church, we don't know. And
Yeah.
so I just felt this, embarrassment of,
Mm.
man, are people just thinking I'm a terrible mom?
Mm.
Or like,
Mm.
what are people thinking as,
Mm-hmm.
having to carry my child out in a safe way who's screaming
Screaming.
and
Yeah.
saying, "You're hurting me," which I'm
Uh-huh.
not, but it
Yeah.
probably feels like it to him
Yeah.
because he knows to use his words, but
Yeah.
he's using his words in a like we I couldn't put him down because he wasn't being safe for himself or others.
Yeah.
So it was just on display the
Yeah.
things that we deal with that
Mm-hmm.
are just part of our life that we've worked through and learned from, but it doesn't mean their meltdowns aren't going to happen.
Yeah.
And just feeling the weight of an invisible disability. And
Yeah.
just, I think I feel it too when I think about sending him to school or playing with other families and just hoping that they will see him for him,
Yeah.
not for his disability that is unlike what maybe people think disabilities are.
Totally. Yeah. Well, and I think about because our little dude is the same age and they're in
Yes.
school together. But
Yes.
I think about even when we get them together for a little
Yeah.
play date, we both
Yeah.
know like, okay, let's do 10 minutes
Yeah.
and we're not going to push it because
Yeah.
neither of them will be able to do longer, but we want them to be able to experience what it's like to have a play date. We want them to be able to have that.
Yeah.
But when it's with somebody who doesn't get that,
Yeah.
who then
Yes.
it makes it a little bit more complicated. And
Yeah.
so how do you handle that? Like, do you
Yeah.
say something to those individuals or what does that look like for you?
Yeah, for the most part, I have to remind myself that if people are judging my parenting, that that's a them problem.
Yes.
That's about them and it's not about me.
Yeah.
Which is easier to say than to do.
Then mhm, for sure. Yeah.
But that's the truth. And
Mhm.
and we surround ourselves with safe places as much as possible.
Mhm.
So safe friends who understand where we're coming from, who
Mhm.
maybe are okay if we're 30 minutes late because our transitions are really hard.
Yeah.
And so it took us a long time to get here, but we made it and we're all sane.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
maybe other families who have kids who have disabilities or
Mhm.
cousins who have
Yeah.
disabilities. So they're familiar with what it's like. Those are the people I'm going to invest in communicating what's actually going on.
Sure.
But yeah, the average person or onlooker at a grocery store, even if they make comments to me, I don't justify. I just
Yeah.
try and just protect my kid and protect
Yeah.
myself and just let that be a them problem.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah. Um, shoot, I lost my train of thought. I'm so sorry.
No, you're amazing.
Um, yeah. So tell me what does that feel like? Like, what is the difference? Because you do have a visible disability, and
Yeah,
then you're parenting a child who has an invisible disability.
yeah,
What does that feel like? What is the different feeling that you have in both of those situations?
yeah. I think with a visible disability, my challenges are like, especially growing up, where people would just kind of stare at me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it's funny as an adult, I think I get that even more so than when I was growing
Really?
up, if I really
Oh
think
my
about it, because
gosh.
kids
Yeah.
are just like, why do
Oh
you have a
yeah.
big hand?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
what
Kids are just
happened
very
to you?
honest. Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
And then, like, that's a great question. I
Yeah.
remember
Yeah.
I worked in a daycare when I was like 19 or something. And this, like, school age boy was like, Teacher Hannah, did your right hand eat too much?
Yes. Yes.
I was like, that is a great question. And so like
That's
you
so
just kind
cute.
of take it for what it
Uh-huh.
is.
Yeah. But adults don't do
But
that.
adults need to be better at just being like,
Yeah.
hey, what's up with that?
Yeah.
It's no big deal. If I don't want to tell you or I'm offended about that, it's not because you did something wrong. Like you just
Yeah.
asked and we're kind
Mm-hmm.
and genuine about it. So and I think then with like invisible disabilities, I think those are hard for people to ask about
Yeah.
because they might not be able to put a finger on what they're trying to ask or what they're
Yeah.
trying to say. Um, so yeah, it kind of presents itself differently. But I do think like as a mother of a child with invisible disabilities, um, just I think we need to allow ourselves to feel the feelings of oh, I'm feeling embarrassed or
Mm,
I'm feeling disappointed. I
mhm,
think disappointment's one that comes up for me a lot,
mhm.
because sometimes I just want to be the family who can go to Costco on a
Yeah,
Saturday
yeah,
and get a piece of pizza
yeah,
afterwards and go play at the park. But that's a lot to
yeah,
ask of
yeah,
my family. And that's just not where we're at right now.
yeah.
But I have to allow myself to feel those feelings of disappointment
Mhm,
and validate them so then I can move forward and
yeah,
be the mom that my kids need me to be.
yeah. So what would your advice be to our listeners who maybe don't understand invisible
Yeah.
disabilities,
Yeah.
or they're also parenting a child and they just don't know what to like? What's your advice for our
Yeah.
listeners?
I would say for maybe friends of people who have, if you're a friend of a mom who has a child with a disability, just asking simply, how can I support you?
Yeah.
Or how can I make my home a safe place for you to be and your children to be? Um, those are just really, really helpful things. Like I think about that, especially if you're like grandparents and your grandkids are dealing
Yeah.
with this, like make your home a place that's safe for them to be, or come to their home instead,
Yes. Yeah.
you
Which
know?
I think is even better
Yeah, it
for
is even better.
uh-huh.
Because if you're in your kids are like when Eli's in our space, it's a lot easier
Yep.
than when we're at grandparents' house who have all these special things that are breakable
And maybe too many toys and too many it's overwhelming
and
and yeah.
noises and
Mhm.
scents and
Mhm.
like blow out all the candles. Don't
Yeah.
light it. Like just like make
Yeah.
things
Yeah.
like so I think that that is a huge thing that people who aren't parenting a child with
Yeah.
invisible disabilities can do.
Can do.
And then I think my encouragement to mamas who are walking through it like I am, or even differently than I am, but still a child with invisible disabilities, just allow yourself to feel the feelings and validate them
Mhm.
and walk through because you can't go around.
Yeah.
Um, and just keep learning because every stage is different and what
Yes.
works one day might literally not work the next day.
Yeah.
So using your tools and also like I think if you have access to therapies like occupational therapy, physical therapy, speech, whatever it is, even feeding, like if you're like, my kid is so picky about
Mhm.
foods, that could be a sensory thing.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
might
And
not
feeding
be.
therapy can help with that.
Yeah, like if you're like,
Yeah.
my kid will eat four things, well, that could be a sensory thing. And
Yeah.
there might be a lot of help out there that you don't even know.
Yeah.
Just like allowing yourself, it's okay to have help. It's okay not to know what to do.
Yeah.
Um, and to lean into resources that are out there, I would
Yeah, and
say.
also like this is what I always say to people is it doesn't hurt to have your child assessed for occupational therapy or for feeding therapy.
Absolutely.
It
Yeah.
doesn't hurt because the worst slash best, I don't know,
Yes.
however you look at it, is they
Yeah.
say, no, you're good. You don't need
You're good.
services. Let's do a check-in in 6 months. Great.
Yeah.
But like, what if you're missing something?
Yeah.
And so it's not a big deal. Like just
Yeah.
have it checked out. Yeah.
If there's help out there that you could get, go for it. And don't let your
Yeah.
feelings of embarrassment or maybe shame that maybe you're not the perfect mom or whatever,
Mhm.
let
Mhm.
it go. Set it aside for it'll be better for you and for your kids.
Mhm. Yeah, totally. Um, okay. So Hannah, we're coming to the end of our time.
Yes.
I just have two final questions for you that I
Okay.
ask all of my guests.
Yes.
So the first one is what do you wish more people, and we kind of have talked about this,
Yeah.
but what do you wish more people would think about or ask when it comes to adoption or foster care?
Whew. Yeah. I think it feels really fresh for us still.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so I think what immediately comes to mind is um, you're not a savior.
Mhm. Oh, that's
Um,
good. Yeah.
adoption is always a sad story. It starts with a
Yeah.
broken family that doesn't get to be together. And there are going
Mhm.
to be things that Eli needs that I will never be for him because I am not biologically related to him.
Yeah.
And I did not save him, and he is
Yeah.
not lucky to have me.
Right. Oh, thank
And
you.
yes, and I knew a nicer way to say that to everyone I meet who
Mm-hmm.
says he's so lucky to have you. Usually I
Mm-hmm.
just respond and say we're the lucky ones.
Yeah.
But the truth is he's not. He's not lucky to
Yeah.
have me.
Yeah.
And I wish that more people went into foster care and adoption without the pride of that savior complex.
Yeah.
Um, that being said, like there's such a need
Yeah.
to be foster parents, and the system is, especially here in Washington State, is really murky and difficult to navigate,
Yeah.
and it's really, really, really tough.
Yeah.
So I would say have your eyes open, learn all you can because you're going to have to advocate your butt off
Yeah.
for your family, for kids coming into your home. And so build yourself up, learn everything you can, and have a great support system before you even
Yeah.
consider going into something like that.
And I will add one more thing, go to therapy.
Go to
Like
therapy.
right? Like anybody who is considering foster care, that
Yeah,
should be
because it's
everything you just said
probably,
plus
yeah,
therapy.
it's a lot of times more about you than it
Mm-hmm.
really is
Mm-hmm.
about anything else. So,
Yeah. Yeah. That's good.
yeah.
Okay. So then what would 3 resources be that you would recommend
Yes.
to our listeners who are parenting or maybe are a support system or however that looks, but three
Yes.
resources that can help when we're doing this hard work?
I wrote these down so I knew exactly how to answer
Yes.
them.
Okay.
The 3 things I would say, um, I took your class, Making Sense of Your Worth.
Mm-hmm.
I took it from you twice. And that is like easily one of the best things I have ever done, like for
Mm-hmm.
myself, but also as a parent.
Mm.
Um, I want everyone I know to take it because it
Yeah.
is so powerful. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that if we can make sense of our own worth and realize our own worth and our need for that, then we can look at our kids and recognize they are little humans.
Yeah.
They want to grow up with this strong worth in themselves.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that is my absolute, oh, so good. I want
Okay.
everyone to take that.
Okay.
My next thing was it's a book called The Explosive Child.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Okay.
I read that during our dark days.
Yeah.
And when we were dealing with an explosive child all the time.
Yeah.
And it's kind of an intense read, especially if you're walking through that season. But I think that that book for me really drove home a concept I already knew from TBRI, but really drove home that there is a behavior or there's a need behind
Need
every
behind.
behavior.
Yeah.
So you're seeing something happening, be a detective. What is happening? What
Yeah.
need is unmet? And how can I meet it?
Yeah.
So
That's good.
that one's a really good one. Um, the last thing is a lot of times if I'm parenting and I'm feeling myself being short or stressed or whatever, um, doing a body scan. Jamie
Okay.
Finn talks about these. She's like, close your eyes if you can, take a deep breath, examine your body from top to bottom. Think about like, is my hair tie too tight? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I have major sensory processing
Mm-hmm.
disorder as an
Yeah.
adult. So if my hair is too tight, it could ruin my whole day.
Yeah.
And so, so
Yeah.
examine within yourself, like, is it too bright? Do I need to chew something or drink something or eat something? When's the last time I had protein? Is this shirt bothering me? Like
Mm-hmm.
just kind of doing
The
this body
full
scan
body. Mm-hmm.
in yourself. And it doesn't have to take long. You
Yeah.
can do it in the midst of parenting. And then I call I call this turning off the noise pollution. And I just walk through my whole house and I turn off everything that is adding to the noise because
Okay.
I'm very sensitive to noise.
Yeah.
And I feel like my house has 5,000 fans somehow. and they're all extremely loud. And so I just go around, I turn off the fans. We have noise machines that stay on a lot of times. I'll turn those off.
Uh-huh.
Maybe I'll put some noise canceling headphones on. Maybe I'll turn off the dishwasher or the dryer or the washing machine or whatever it is. And I just bring down the noise
Quiet. Yeah.
pollution.
Yeah.
And then typically I'm like, oh, I can be a
Yeah.
great parent now. I feel
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
My socks are bothering me. My pants are bothering me. There's
Yeah.
noise everywhere. Okay. Those are very solvable things that then can help me just be more patient and more present with my kids.
Yeah, I love that because honestly, we don't think about those things with ourselves. We think about them sometimes with our kids, like,
Yeah.
oh, yeah, those are the socks you don't like because they have that weird string that bothers you. And okay, well,
Yes.
but we don't
Yes.
think about that stuff with ourselves that we can
Yeah.
also be overstimulated.
Oh, yeah.
And so that's a good reminder.
Yes. Eli came up to me yesterday. He had these slippers on that are like little puppy dog slippers. It's so cute. And he walks up and he's like, Mom, can you please cut this tag out? Only one has a tag. Why is that?
Right. You're
It's a great
right, son.
question.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we just put it right back on without the
Yeah.
tag. And he's like, I love things without tags.
Yeah. And you're like, same.
Too, pal. Me
Yeah.
too. Little things.
Uh-huh.
So
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Okay. Well, Hannah, thank you so much for
thank you
sharing.
for having
I
me.
really appreciate you being vulnerable and just yeah, giving us some more insight into your journey because that ultimately can help someone else on their
Yeah.
journey. So,
Yes. Well,
thank
thank you
you.
so much. I love your podcast. You're doing great
Thank
work,
you.
my friend.
Oh, thank you.
Yes.
Okay, well, have a great, super fabulous day.
Yes, cake day.
Thanks. Oh, yes, cake day. Although not when this airs, because this
Oh,
airs on a
darn.
Monday. This airs on a Monday, but 4 days till cake day.
4 days till cake day.
All right. See you later.
Bye.